Okay. Here we are again. Or here I am. You people will come, I'm sure. Whew, it's Sunday. Okay, good. It's Sunday. Welcome, all of you. I seem to start out that way to my fourth, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, fourth day of my 30-day Facebook Lives. It's Sunday, hence the t-shirt. I like wearing t-shirts on Sunday. I can actually wear whatever I want any day because I work from home. And hi, Kirsten. And yes, so glad to be here again. And can I just say, since we're talking about Def Leppard, that was a huge red flag. I should have seen that. He didn't even know who Def Leppard. I don't even think he knew who Def Leppard was. But if he did, he didn't like him. That should have been my first clue. Anyway, I was lucky enough to see Def Leppard in high school way back when we actually, I think concert tickets were like $35 or something like that, and you actually got the ticket. And then I saw them again with my high school friends. When was that, last year? I don't know. Anyway, it was recent, and we weren't close to the stage, and I have terrible eyesight, so they looked exactly like they did in I think I saw them in 1985. Anyway, I digress. Me and Def Leppard are here in the building to answer all your questions and talk about what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so if this is your first time joining me on one of my Facebook Lives, I'm Susanna, and I am your resident narcissist recovery coach, helping one woman at a time get over her abusive ex for good, forever, for eternity, right? In the rearview mirror, Taylor Swift singing, "We are never, ever, ever getting back together." Okay, just so we're clear on that. I'm also a writer, and I've spoken about why these Facebook Lives is a whole new world for me, because as a writer my whole life, I'm used to staying behind what used to be behind pen and paper, but now it's behind my keyboard. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Sarah. But so that's nerve-wracking. But to be honest, what I was thinking about this morning before I logged on is that one of the other reasons that I think I've been putting this off for so long, and I'm sorry about that, but it's been like years I've been thinking about doing this, but especially this year, I'm like, I gotta do these so I can talk directly to people, because that's the best way to connect, right? I mean, barring that we're in person with each other. But I was thinking about that and it wasn't just because I'm a writer, it's because I've spent the majority of my life, right? Like up until I was 45 years old, which was 6 years ago. Up until I was 45, I was always in abusive relationships with men, starting from back with my father, where I was expected to be silent. And if I did talk, I needed to say nice things, specifically about the men I was with, like, right? Because narcissists don't like to hear anything negative about themselves. And I don't even mean I just mean like basic expressing my opinion. That was a bad thing. If it disagreed, if I didn't share their opinion, right? So I was trained from a young age to watch what I say, and to, like, if I was out in public, to sort of make myself, the unknown in the room while the men could, shine and take up all the oxygen in the room. So that's another reason that this is, this is brand new. This isn't like riding a bike and getting back on. This is a whole new, in this case, this is a bike I've never ridden before. So this is all brand new. Anyway, let's get started. We have about, I always say 30 minutes, but I always go over because I get so excited to talk to you all. So yesterday we were talking about the language surrounding narcissistic abuse and why it's so important to understand those terms is because we can figure out, when we can put a name to the problem, then we can solve that problem, right? So, so for example, when I was in the abusive marriage, I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't put a name to it, right? So thereby I just thought everything was my fault and that I was the one with the problem. So once I escaped and once I started uncovering all these terms, not only like narcissists, because as I mentioned before, I used to think I had heard the term narcissist because I had studied Greek mythology, but I just thought it was somebody, again, that just liked to look at themselves in the mirror, like it was a physical thing, right? That you're just in love with your appearance. I had no idea the complexity or what narcissistic personality disorder. I didn't even know that was a thing until my ex was diagnosed. So it was really important for me because when I learned about terms like gaslighting or smear campaign or the silent treatment, that just really, because I felt so alone, and that just really pulled me out of my loneliness to understand that somebody else understood what I was going through, what I was feeling. So that's why I wrote this original piece that I tacked onto my page about an hour ago, or hour and a half ago. If you want to read that it was 2015 actually that I published that. That was my first publication of writing my truth. And it went viral all over the world. So it was a really important piece and still is to this day because it just breaks down the terms, which is what we're going to talk about today. And if you have any questions, please. Good morning, James, my best friend from high school. It's crazy that we got back in touch. Like the people from my high school that I've reconnected with, because I went out of high school, which was so much fun and so awesome, and I had such great friends, and everything was just awesome. That's when I went pretty much straight into the darkness. First husband early on when I was 20, all the way up until I was 45. So I just disappeared off the planet to a lot of my old high school friends, to all of them, most of them, even my best friends. So yes, so I'm glad to be back with. That's why I get so excited when I see these old friends, because it's like I'm getting back in touch with the girl that I used to be, right? Hence the name of my book. Okay, so let's get started, because yesterday I might even have to have a part 3 to this, because there's a lot of terms. Today I'd like to start with gaslighting, but the one thing that I want you to be aware of, because yesterday we were talking about what an empath is and how they're such great targets for narcissists and the reasons why. The one thing I want you to understand is that there's a difference between somebody who lies. I mean, we've all done it, where we lie, or we tell a white lie or whatever, because like maybe we're in trouble, or we want to hide something or whatever else, and then we get caught and then we say we're sorry, whatever, right? We've all done that. There's a difference between somebody who does that and somebody like a narcissist who's a pathological liar, right? Like, they lie so often that it's part of their makeup. It's part of who they are. And what I discovered with the narcissist that I was married to is that pathological liars are really good at what they do, right? And so they lie so much that even like when you get to know them intimately, they lie about things they don't even really have a need to lie about, right? Because it's just who they are. It's just what they do. So we just want to, be aware of that when we're remembering how, what narcissists really are. Okay, I'm always gonna, yes, thank you, Demetra. I know I still get on this piece. That's what the understanding the language of narcissistic abuse. That saved my life, and I still get messages from people all over the world. It's crazy. It's just so crazy that I mean, I swear to God, I thought I was all alone, even when I wrote that piece, you know, and I had kept a journal of writing these terms like normalizing, right? So I would hear that, or I would research and I'd hear that, and I'm like, normalizing, okay, this is what happened to me. This is how I normalize things, he normalized things, you know. So this is this long journal I was keeping all year until I finally put it out in this piece. But I really, when I hit send, and it took me about 4 months to write the piece because it was my first, I was so nervous. I was still going through a divorce, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, which we'll get into, like stalking and cyber stalking, all this stuff. I was in like criminal investigations and I had restraining orders. It was crazy. It was a horrible, horrible year. But when I sent this piece and I thought, okay, now I'm in trouble. I'm going to get it from you know who. And the response was just so incredible. And it just made me cry like day after day. I was just in tears when, you know, people would send me messages because it was like you think you're all alone in the entire world. And then all of a sudden an army of people show up, right, to lift you out of your despair. So, okay, so let's talk about hoovering. Let's talk about hoovering. I know a lot of you have heard this term. It's named after the Hoover vacuum, right? Because what do vacuums do? They suck you back in, right? So how does a narcissist hoover? And they can do this during the relationship or after the relationship, right? So they do it by, my definition is a tactic used to suck you back in by exhibiting improved or desirable behavior. So basically what the narcissist will do is that, let's say you're in the relationship, right? And they do something, maybe you find out about whatever, you threaten to leave them, you threaten to divorce them, then they hoover you by going back to the love bombing stage, right? So they're like, they pour it on and they're like, oh my God, I love you. And they go back to that guy that you knew in the beginning, right? So this happened all the time, especially the last few years in my marriage. It also happens after you leave, right? Which the fact is that women return to their abuser an average of 7 times. My belief is because we do that because when we leave, we know we're supposed to leave, right? We know it's the best thing for us, but then we go into that very lonely place of despair where we don't know how to heal, we don't know how to recover, we're really lonely, we're still brainwashed into thinking that we're never going to find anything better. And that combined with the narcissist constantly, you know, using that vacuum, like sucking you back in, being the pathological liar he is, right? So promising you the world and rainbows and puppies and all of that to get you back in, right? This leads us to our next term, which is called bait and switch. So this is what they do. So the Hoover vacuum is kind of like a fishing line, right? Like they throw it out and they're like, you know, come here, baby. Look, I'm going to change. I'm so sorry. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, whatever. And we bite. And I bet plenty of times, even after I left, I went back once. So if any of you have gone back, even multiple times, don't beat yourself up over it, okay? So they, you know, reel you back in, right? Which is what I did. And then they switch. So they bait you to get you back in, right? They hoover you, get you back in. They go back to love bombing you again. And you're like, oh, there's the guy, right? Because I had lost that guy. I'm like, where's that guy? Like I was just, you know, you're living with a Jekyll and Hyde. And I don't know who the bad guy is, if it's Jekyll or Hyde, who's a good, anyway. I was living with the bad guy 90% of the time in the last couple of years, right? The one who was just mean and cruel and whatever else. But then that 10% would pop up, which was the hoovering part, the love bombing, where I'm like, oh, there he is. Oh, okay. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, there he is. Right. He loves me. Yeah, right. We're going to do this again. Okay. So I go do it again, right? So that's the bait. Then they switch. And they go back to being who they really are, right? And that's how you get hurt all over again, because you go back in with expectations that, wait a second, I thought he just said he loved me and everything's going to be better now. And he apologized for lying, cheating, stealing, whatever, everything, right? And he's going to change and it's all going to be, you know, we're just going to be sleeping on beds of roses now. And then they switch. Now, I also will tell you, when this bait and switch happens, when they switch, and this is also to go to the fact that narcissists do not change. I have never read an expert, any expert out there, I've never read anything other than, if you're with a narcissist, they're not going to change, run. That's it. Just run. We're not talking about this. Like, they're not going to change. If anything, and as in my case, they get worse. Because here's the thing, the more that they hoover you and you come back, the more that they, you know, bait you and suck you back in, the more that we're enabling them, again, not our fault, the more we're enabling them to continue, and the more that they know, ha, got her wrapped around my finger, right? Like, I can do whatever I want. And so that's why they get worse, because they know that our standards are dropping for how this human being treats us. So what happened to me when I went back, right? So I left, and then I went back because I was too scared. I was too scared to get a divorce. I had kids. I felt like I was the one breaking up the marriage. All of that. I didn't want that on my shoulders, right? So I thought, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try again, because it's up to me to save this marriage. So I went back. It was worse than ever. I didn't make it, I think, like 6 months. It was worse than ever. So that's why you got to watch out for, and this is another topic that I'll address on what exactly does love even look like, because we get so trained to lower our standards, to expect breadcrumbs, right? And we get so starved for human connection, for affection, for love, for attention, for compassion, right? And the longer you're with a narcissist, the less of that you're going to get. So we get trained to, when they do throw out a breadcrumb, we're starving and we'll take anything at that point, right? But why do we, why doesn't it occur to us that, wait a second, why am I putting up with this? Why, right? So we're going to cover that topic another time. Okay, the other term is, and this goes into what I was just talking about, is normalizing. I'll read you what I wrote back in 2015. Normalizing is a tactic used to desensitize a person to inappropriate or abusive behaviors. Manipulating a person to agree or accept something that is in conflict with the law, social norms, or their own basic code of behavior. Now, I know y'all who have been with a narcissist, y'all have a story of a narcissist either tempting you or actually getting you to do something that you know you don't want to do, that is against maybe your ethics or your values, right? Or your beliefs. And maybe you do it, or you want to do it, or, I did a lot of shit. I'm like, okay, I was not, thank God there was okay, I'm going to share this really private thing. So there was this narcissist will try to convince you to do like anything, especially, right, you know where I'm going with this. Anyway, so the one thing, like, I did a lot of stuff that again, just like it says, is that this became normal to me. And so I did things that I wasn't proud of, smaller things like, or not so smaller things, but we ran businesses together, right? So he would do things that were unethical. And I've always been a very by the book gal. Like, I'm the gal that I don't care how much money I make or don't make, I'm going to pay my taxes. But whether it's fair or not, I don't know. But I'm going to pay my taxes, right? I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. That's just who I am. So there were a lot of instances, because we had our own businesses together, where I would have to constantly, and sometimes I even sort of, well, I definitely enabled him to do things that were unethical and wrong. And in some cases, I assisted him because he, you know, pressured me to do things. For example, just business dealings, stuff like that, they were just wrong. And he would set people up. He would set people up, and I would hear him talking to them. And these are like friends of ours. This is a very small town. And these are like realtors that were friends of ours, or bankers, people in banks, mortgage lenders, stuff like that, that were friends of ours. And or you know, we were in the construction business. Anyway, you get the point. And I would hear him, you know, talk to this person and then talk to this person, like triangulate, lying to both of them. And triangulation is something we'll talk about. But lying to both of them, and I hear him, and he was, I'm sure he still is, very charming when he wants to be. And so he would manipulate this person and manipulate this person, because he always had a goal that benefited him, right? Business-wise, money-wise, financially speaking. And so all of those times that my conscience was like, oh, that is so wrong. And not only that, but they didn't know that about him. I kept all of his secrets, right? Which, shame on me for doing it back then, but you know what? That's why I don't do it anymore. I don't hide anything. I will tell all secrets. That's going to be another topic of, we're not going to hold the secrets of narcissists who are hurting us, because then we're just giving them the control to continue hurting us. So normalizing is when, and this is a frequent topic, I would say all the women I work with, all of them who are, and they're all at different stages, you know, some are just at the tail end of the relationship, want to get out, or figuring out how to get out. Some of them are about to go into the divorce process. Some of them share kids, want to know how to, you can't co-parent with a narcissist, but how to make that all work. And some are just years down the line and they just can't heal and recover. But with all these women, one thing is true, is that we normalize what has been done to us, so that by the time we can't even see how bad the behavior is. We don't have a frame of reference to say, like, if we saw that happening to somebody else, to our best friend, we'd be like, what? No, that's awful what he's doing to you, right? But when it comes to ourselves, we're so used to it, because it's been normalized how we've been treated. So for example, going through, you know, you get so accustomed to how they talk to you, right? So they, from one minute to the next, one minute they're charming and you're the love of their life and you're up on the pedestal, and then the next minute they're cruel and unforgiving and they're calling you crazy and they're talking behind your back and lying to you and about you and whatever else, right? So when you're, especially that the longer that you're in a relationship with a narcissist, yes, that says it best. Just being repeatedly exposed to this behavior normalizes it. That's perfectly said, Laura. So that's what normalizing is that, so when we're healing and recovering, we have to understand that we don't have a good frame of reference of what right and wrong is anymore, right? And just like I was talking about when I was in the marriage, these behaviors of his, they became normalized to me. I was used to him being unethical and making shady decisions, um, and I was so used to it that I became not exactly party to it, because always behind closed doors, I'm like, I don't want to do this, or I don't approve of this or whatever. But then I had been so, especially in like the last 5 years, I had been so emotionally beaten down that, that girl who's like standing with hands on hips and like, I'm not going to take this. Right? Yeah, she was gone. She was gone. I took it. I took it all. And I just put up with it. And I was tired. I had 3 little kids. I was tired. So I didn't do anything about it. So it was really important that I understood that when I started my healing process, and when I started talking to people, whether it was just acquaintances or new friends that I made, and when I would tell them, because I would test the waters, right? And so, for example, I would, if I was in a conversation with a new friend or something, and I'd say, this happened to me. And when their face was full of shock, like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so da 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 da, right? Then I was like, okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. This isn't okay, right? If somebody would have been like, there's no problem, I don't see a problem with that, then I would have been like, okay, all right, yeah, no, I'm just making too much out of it and whatever else. Because again, you just get, my God, it's really, I feel like I was just dumbed down, right? After so much just psychological head games all the time that I wasn't prepared for. So that's normalizing. And the other thing that I normalized was his behavior in public. So when we first met, there were ways that he treated women that I was like, that I would call him out on, like when we very first met. And remember I told you yesterday about the love bombing thing. So he was already like, I had his attention, right? Because he was love bombing me, so he was interested in hooking me. But there were things that he would do that I was like, no, that's not okay. Like he would call women, like even older women, like the checker at the grocery store who was like 60 years old, call her honey. He would call little girls love, amor. He said that was his culture, and I'm like, is it? Because I don't hear all the other Latin guys I know calling young girls amor. So things like that I would call him out on. And then flash forward, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years later, it was really bad, where we had a dance studio together. I mentioned we were both dance teachers, and we had a ballroom that we did shows, and it was super fun. And parties, and so he was always the star of the show, and he would just flirt his way through every vagina in a mile radius, so help me God. While me, and sometimes my kids, we'd just be like standing there with a fake smile on my face. Or I couldn't even smile with teeth. I had a smirk, so, and I know there were probably so many people who were like, what's up with her? Why is she such a bitch? Or she's so stuck up or whatever. And I'm like, it's because my husband's fucking flirting right in front of me and my children. So that was something I normalized. I just got used to it. It seemed like a lot of the women were enjoying it. So that was definitely something, I normalized. He would send texts that were inappropriate to women that we worked with, or that were students, or that were friends, or just, he was just And it just grows a lot. But I didn't see it as, you know, I had to normalize it, because here's the thing. I was in the marriage, and if I would have had to admit to myself these facts about this man that I loved, had children with, invested with, I was going to spend my whole life with, right? I thought. I couldn't admit these things to myself. I couldn't look at them honestly, because then that meant that I would have to do something about them, right? Because what kind of woman would put up with that shit? So that's why it was easy just to say, nah, whatever. I'll just put whatever. It's fine. Okay. Another term we talked about yesterday about empaths and how narcissists love empaths because we believe, well, what I used to believe, what I learned is not true, is that all people are inherently good and that they'd never do anything on purpose to hurt you, right? Yeah, that's not true. So empaths are, or anybody that the narcissist targets, is a form of supply. And I think this is a great term because it really shows you that narcissists don't even see people, like as human beings, right? They see people as what they can do for them, right? What can I get out of you, right? And that was when I started looking back on my marriage, I realized, and again, looking back like a scientist, like I don't have any judgment about it. There is no bitterness, revenge, anger, hatred, none of that. I look back like a scientist because I want to figure it out so that I can make sure that I never make those mistakes again in the future, right? It's really simple math. But looking back on that and seeing how everything he did, like he didn't have, and I've heard this from so many others who are in relationships with narcissists, is that he didn't have any real friends. Do you know what I mean? Like a real friend who, just like a real friend, not like people you go out and hang out with and you have some fun with and whatever else, but like a real friend, you know what I mean? That you're connecting with and talking on the phone, whatever, and is there for you in times of trouble and whatever. And I noticed that in all his relationships, obviously with me, even narcissists with their own children, you know, it's like, what can you do for me? But in all relationships, I realized that because I saw him behind the scenes, right? Nobody else saw him behind the scenes, not even the kids, because I would hide. I mean, the kids would see part of him, right? But I would hide. It was me. I was the secret keeper. I was the only one. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my two closest friends because they were also friends with him. And I didn't want them to know what he was saying about them, right? So I enabled him to, and I kept his secret, which just nearly killed me in the end. But I would watch him just play the room, play the people he knows, whether it was in business or personal or in the dancing that we did. That's why, and I swear to God, if you were to talk to anybody, that people would attest that I was the quiet one that would a lot of times would just be standing back and just listening, maybe nodding my head, whatever. Because especially the last few years, what I was really doing is I was just like, the narrative in my head, the conversation in my head was crazy. It's probably a good thing nobody knew what I was thinking, because I was like, I would just look at him as he would spin, right? And he'd be talking to people, and I'm like, you're such a liar. You're such a fucking liar. You just told me this the other day about this person, and you just right? I mean, he was just a master showman, right? He was like I always say that emotional abuse is like waking up in a circus that you don't remember buying a ticket to, and the one you love is the ringmaster, right? He was the ringmaster. He was a one-man show. He had everybody. So it made sense that, and this will be another topic, the smear campaign and stuff like that, and what happens afterward, and all the people we lose when we leave a narcissist, or a narcissist leaves us and we leave that situation. We also lose a lot of people. Sometimes we lose our own family members. We'll lose close friends, best friends. You know, it makes sense though, because if you think about it, for 16 years, I was his secret keeper. I was the only one in the entire world who knew what he was saying about these other people behind closed doors. I was the only one who saw how he worked, right? Who saw what he was doing in business, in personal relationships, so forth and so on. So, and I just stood back and I held all those secrets, right? Because in the beginning, because I loved him and I thought, well, he's just making a mistake. He's just being really stupid and inappropriate and I need to help him. You know, because that's what we women do, right? We're like, oh, look at him. He probably had a bad childhood, so I'm just going to help him. I'm going to help him become a better man. God, I don't even know where we get that idea, ladies, but we just need to, no, this is not like a do-it-yourself project with people. We can't just fix people up, right? We can't like go to take a class at Home Depot and make them, put them together. So, supply. That's what supply is. It's people. It's you, it's me, it's whoever the narcissist needs to use to get something, whatever it is, whether they want attention, whether that's positive or negative, whatever a narcissist needs, they go to supply, which are actually human beings, right? That right there tells you everything you need to know about a narcissist and why, like I said, I'm not advocating physical harm. Never. I'm just saying that wouldn't it be better for them to be separated? Like, so that they could just do this to each other? So, and I need to hear back about that because yesterday we were talking about what would happen if we put all narcissists together and there was no more supply left, right? If all of us just stood up and we're like, we see you. No, you can't hoover me. You can't. No, we're done. Can't love bomb me. We're done. Go off. So all the narcissists go off into their private island, and what would happen? So we were thinking they might eat each other, but I don't know. I don't know about these things. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Okay, what time is it? Oh my God, time goes so fast. Okay, so gaslighting. Let's quickly touch on that. Oh, gaslighting. Oh my God. Gaslighting is just, okay, let me read you my definition on gaslighting. A form of mental abuse that includes brainwashing or convincing a mentally healthy individual that their understanding of reality is false, making victims doubt their own memory, perception, and sanity. The term is from a really old black and white movie called Gaslight, in which the villain, I think it was Ingrid Bergman, was the victim, but the villain makes her feel like she's crazy by turning on the lights, which were gas lights. Anyway, I've never seen the movie, to my knowledge. The point of gaslighting is that's the crazy maker in a narcissistic abusive relationship. That is the crazy maker, right? So you go to, and I put the checklist, I posted that yesterday, of a lot of things that they'll say. You know, one of the things that my ex would say all the time was his favorite was, well, obviously I was too sensitive. I needed to grow a thicker skin. And they always say it to you like they'll put an insult out there or whatever, and then when you're hurt by it, then they'll turn it kind of into a joke, right? Like, Jesus, you're so sensitive, or, you know, or when I would get really upset, like if I found out he had done something terrible, right? And then he would tell me I'm too emotional, right? Just skewing our version of reality. A lot of that happens with conversations where, and here's the thing is that I have a fantastic memory. I have a really, really good memory, except with people's names. I suck at that. But with details, I have a fantastic memory. And so you'd think, and in the beginning, I did catch on, but over the years, as it was just a constant, I actually started doubting my own memory. So that's what gaslighting is because I started doubting my own perception of things, right? Like I would say to him, hey, you did say this. Do you remember when you said this like 6 months ago or whatever, and did it, whatever, you know, how, and he's like, I never said that. I don't know what you're thinking. You must be imagining things. Or when he would, even in the same conversation, you know, saying something where I start responding to it and then he twists it, because narcissists are really good at mixing that word salad, right? It's called a word salad because they throw out so much at you that you're like, you feel like you're in a paint mixer. Right? Because you're like, I can't, I don't even know. Stop. So gaslighting is that malicious attempt to make you doubt your own sanity, your own perception of things, to leave you just in this fog. Again, it just adds to the fog and the confusion that victims live in. On that note, I just want to really quickly point out, because some people are not cool with using the word victim. They'd rather use targets, and that's fine, whatever term you want to use. The reason I use the word victim is when people are still, like, I'm not a victim anymore, but I was a victim, right? When this is my belief. Feel free to, you know, it's just semantics here that we're talking about. When I was in it, I was a victim of his abuse, right? When I got out of it, I was a survivor. Now I'm a survivor. Now I've even moved. I'm an overcomer, as my best friend Mitzi says, right? So anyway, the terms are up to you. I will tell you that when I first had the psychologist, the first psychologist who diagnosed my ex, when he actually basically told me that I was a victim of abuse, that actually was really comforting to me, that word, victim, because then I wasn't the perpetrator, right? That's why it felt good to me at the time. It felt not good, but like comforting, because up until then, and narcissists do that, they call you the names they project on you, what they themselves are, right? So so they may call you the narcissist, or they, like with my ex, I remember he would tell me, he would tell me that I was the bully. And I started actually self-reflecting on that, like questioning that, like, am I the bully? Am I the bully? Am I the bad guy here? Am I like, it was almost like one of those out-of-body experiences, like Twilight Zone or something, where you're like, wait, am I doing this stuff in my sleep? Maybe I don't even know. Maybe I'm like this horrible, horrible person who's just wreaking havoc and hate everywhere and pain and inflicting pain on all these people, and I don't even know it. I believe that. I did. So when the psychologist told me I was a victim, it took the burden of me being the instigator and the perpetrator. So that's why I use that term. I also feel very strongly about, once you leave and you're on the recovery and healing journey, that you want to do everything in your power to get out of victimhood, right? And move. No, we need to be a survivor, right? We do not want to stay in victimhood. That's another topic, talking about how not to stay in victimhood. I stayed there for a little while in the beginning. I did. I took up residence, put up a mailbox. I was there for a little while. Yeah. In that place of, how could he do this to me? Right? Anyway, we'll talk about that another day. So, okay. So I'm looking through comments. Thank you for all more comments, and I don't see any questions. So I'm going to wrap this up just by saying that, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have a couple of announcements. So right after this at noon is, and I put the link in yesterday to Chris Godinez's show. That starts at noon. She's the narcissist expert. Like, she's a therapist and she talks. She just gets right. Oh my God, she's amazing. And you're gonna love her. So she is at noon, and you can find my link in the last comments from yesterday's. Also, I'll be in Reno on September 13th, and that is, you can go to Mercury, MURCURI.com, and that go to the events page. We have several events this year where Chris and I come and speak to an intimate group of people, small group of people, where we share our stories, and basically you can have, you know, your one-on-one time with us and just ask all your most pressing questions and get our help, support, and guidance, and in the privacy, right, of being in person. So, and always feel free, if you need more information on that, to reach out to me via Facebook. Again, I would love to offer any of you who have not read my book yet. It is not out it won't be out in bookstores until next year, but I'll have hard copies in my hot little hands soon. Until then, if you want to get a free copy of the ebook on Kindle, you can just go to my website at SuzannaQuintana.com and get that. Also, for all of you who are still struggling on that journey, remember, we're all on the same road. I just happen to be farther ahead. If you need me to throw that life preserver to you, I do have, I think, 3, maybe 4 time slots available this next week for a complimentary call with me. I'd love to talk to you and hear more about what you're going through. You can just either send me a private message, or you can go to my website, SuzannaQuintana.com, and schedule there. I think there's like 3 or 4 times left, but they book up fast. There's a lot of people who are on this journey, and we're going to help them through it. So, as always, so glad I could be here with all of you. I love these Facebook Lives, and I just want you to know that if you are still, you know, living in the darkness and still in pain and struggling, that you're not alone, and that I'm just sending you tons of hope and strength. I am the poster girl for getting out successfully, making it to the light, claiming my space, owning my space in the light, enjoying a life full of real love, not abuse disguised as love. So, Def Leppard fans, rock on, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Okay, I gotta log off. Okay, bye.